Hello, friends! Welcome to Coding Garden with CJ. Welcome to Newby Tuesdays. Today's episode, we are going to build a weather app with Vue.js. And I have a very special guest, Mr. Tony. Say hello, Tony.
Hello, Tony. How's it going, everybody?
Ha. It's a funny guy. Okay. So if you've seen the previous episodes of Newby Tuesdays, Tony does not know much about coding. He's been doing it on and off for like a year or so. And we kind of just pair on an app.
Yep, the only thing that stops us is audio issues and GIFs.
Yeah, if you watched the last episode, it took us about 30 minutes to get a GIF working, and then we ended up not getting it working and used something else instead. But that's fine. We worked through our issues. There is a comment in the chat. A person has already clicked the like button. You know you're going to like it even though you haven't seen anything yet? Of course. We've got some fans of Coding Garden out there in the world.
3 people.
3 likes already? Cool. So we're gonna do this. Basically, we're gonna create the Vue app. We are gonna be using Bootstrap. We're gonna be using, Tony doesn't know this yet, but I have decided on using the DarkSky API. There are a lot of different weather APIs out there. But in my research this morning, this one seemed to be the most easiest to use and the most easiest to sign up for. I'm going to have Tony even go through like the sign up process. You can see how that works. And then we're going to get coding. One thing I have decided for today's episode is instead of coding it like in the super beginner way for a Vue app, we're actually going to generate an app with the CLI and we're going to create modules, maybe even create components. Tony, does that scare you at all?
It does not scare me, and I don't know if it like ruins that sort of reveal, but I have used DarkSky before.
Okay, I'm mainly talking about like CLI generation and
Just to
components.
show like, yeah. No, oh yeah, CLI terrifying.
Cool. Let's get started then. So, actually, I have to give control to Tony. So Tony is going to be controlling my machine, mainly just so all you viewers out there can get some nice HD screen. We're not going to see any like pixelated stuff. And Tony, are you ready?
I'm ready for my Commodore 64 machine.
Just let me go through the chat messages real quick. What is the full form of CJ? Not sure what that question means. This is me. Actually, you can see even more of me. Just a second. Whoa! Okay. And George, CJ Fans United. Yes. Magneto, welcome to the chat. Do CJ and Tony have a team name? Do we have a team name, Tony?
Not yet.
I guess the answer is no. Maybe by the end of this episode.
We need...
If you can come up with
something will come organically.
Yeah, so if you have a team name, throw it in the chat. We can vote on it maybe at the end of the episode. All right, Tony, we're going to generate a Vue app with the CLI. Just before you run any commands, anyone out there, if you want to install this CLI tool, you do npm install-g @vue/CLI. This, as long as you have Node and npm installed, this will work on Windows, Mac, Linux, and this installs the Vue CLI tool so you can generate apps. Once you have it installed, you can use it. So here's what we're going to do, Tony. Type Vue space create space weather app.
And we're going to do camel case?
Let's do dash case because it's a folder. I mean, it doesn't matter, but we can do whatever we want, but that's what I want. Cool. Now we get to choose our options. So these are some configurations that I've done in the past, but we're going to actually manually select the features. Hey, Brooks, welcome. You have me up on the big screen. That's awesome. It's like I'm there again. I used to work with Brooks. Yeah, and so Sai in the chat is mentioning you can use NPX. So just a quick aside, I think this is worth mentioning. Before we do that, let's take a quick stretch. Whew. Quick shout out. Oh, you can barely see that. There's lots of green on it. But one of my former students gave me a whole case of yerba mate. This is one of my favorite beverages, so shout out to Michael. Okay, yeah, so Sai in the chat mentioned you can use NPX. So for the longest time, people have been installing things globally, like @vue/CLI. This installs a command on your machine, puts it in a specific place, and then it kind of like lives there. But for various reasons, we don't necessarily want to do that all the time, and so instead you can use NPX. And the way npx works is if you don't have that command on your machine, it will download it and use it right then and there. So if you do npx view create, this will actually execute the view command and download the Vue CLI like all in one go. I already have it installed globally, so we just use view create. But yeah, Vue npx is the new thing. Oh, Kaizen's in the chat too. I was here this morning and when I woke up and back here before bed. Awesome. Welcome, Kaizen. And yeah, so Sai is asking what I'm using for breaks. This is all very important stuff. We need to get to it before we get into the coding. I use Dejal Timeout. This is specifically for Macs, but I have it set up for a 10-second micro break every 15 minutes, and then I have it set up for a 5-minute break every hour. You can customize it to your heart's content.
Do you still use Flux?
I do use Flux, yeah. I have that. Well, it's disabled now because it's like broad daylight here. But that like makes the screen yellow at night, so it's easier on your eyes. And then if you're using Windows, I've used a thing called iLeo, which is similar to Timeout, and you can set it up for micro breaks and longer breaks. It basically tells you to stop working and take a quick break. Awesome. All right. We're into this. So we just ran the Vue CLI create command, and now we get to choose our options. So Tony, press the arrow keys. Press down to select one.
All right.
Let's choose router. We may not use it initially. Oh God, what did you do, Tony?
I press enter.
You don't want to press enter. You want to press space. It's okay though. We'll try again. Okay, so to select something in the CLI, you press space. So arrow down to router and press space. We may not use it initially, but we could eventually, if we have enough time, have a feature where you could share a URL that has like a location in the URL, and whoever opens that link will automatically see that weather. So that'll be cool. Arrow down to linter and formatter.
Mm-hmm.
And now hit enter. So we're going to make a basic Vue app. It'll have the router and linting. We're going to choose ESLint Airbnb config. We'll do lint on save. And we'll put all of our configs in the Packagejson. You can save this for the future. You can give it a name, like Tony app or something like that. And then in the future, if you want to generate an app with the same features, you can actually select that from the initial screen.
Kind of like a template almost.
Mm-hmm. The only difference is it installs everything as plugins instead of like hard-coded as just like a generated template. Cool. So while that's running, let's kind of look through what we're going to do. So the plan is to, we're going to add Bootstrap. We'll probably use something from Bootswatch. Had like a basic Navbar. We'll sign up for DarkSky and show how that works and get an API key. And then we're going to create an API module. It's basically just a JavaScript file that's going to call the API. And then we'll bring that file into our Vue component, call the API from inside of the component, add the weather to the page. I have here using sky icons. So sky icons is a library that gives you like these nice little animated weather icons. However, Tony has an idea to use emojis instead. So we might do that. We just have to come up with what's the emoji for when it's raining, or what's the emoji for when there's lightning, or something like that. And yeah, and I think initially we're just going to hard code the latitude, longitude of the location we're looking for the weather. We can do that as like Columbus, Ohio. That's where Tony is. But once we get everything added to the page and we're calling the API, then we're going to allow the user to enter the location. And that's going to be a little bit more complex because we first need to take a location or take a zip code, send that to an API to turn that into a latitude, longitude, and then take that latitude, longitude, and request the weather using that. So we'll make it to where wherever you are in the world, you can enter your location and see the weather. The API also provides like current weather, and it also provides weather upcoming in the future. And if we have enough time, we'll add a weather map to the page. They make it pretty simple. DarkSky has these DarkSky maps. And you can just do like a simple embed. Fun fact, I haven't shown Tony this yet, but they have an emoji view. And they show you like a map of, it's like based on
Oh my god.
based on the weather in that area, it shows an emoji with that. So we'll probably use this.
So yeah, the way you like pitched the emoji thing, you're like throwing me under the bus, and then like turns out they were doing that before me. So
Yeah, but I mean,
that's awesome.
kind of what we want to do is like show. Let's see if we look at the. Can we just see?
I think like
Yeah.
what I was talking about doing is kind of like the classic, like you pull up like a weather thing, and like there's like a sun for the what like for
Right,
when it's
right.
sunny. In this instance, like we would just show like a little smiling face with the glasses.
Right. And so I'm thinking like for our app we're going to kind of emulate what they have up here, but instead of this we'll show like an emoji, we'll show all the details. They give you like a summary of what the current weather is, that kind of thing.
I think we should, if it's cloudy, we'll just like put the British flag on there.
Okay. But yeah, we can be super creative with it. Okay, the app is done generating. So Tony, please change into the weather app directory.
All right, changing directory, weather. All right,
And then run that
we're in.
command npm run serve.
I'm
And
sorry if you hear like some. Okay,
hear what?
run serve. My cat is like right behind me attacking me right now. I'm sorry.
Okay, no worries. You misspelled serve.
Sorry, there's a little bit of lag.
Okay.
All right, here
Sweet.
we go.
Yeah, and so that starts up the Vue CLI service on port 8080, and there we go. We have a basic Vue.js app. Let's go to our to-do. So we generated it, we started it. Now let's add Bootstrap. We are going to use Bootswatch. So Tony, tell me when to stop. Which theme do you want to use?
Keep going, keep going. Let's do superhero,
This one, cool.
the brave and the blue. Yeah.
That's pretty nice. Okay, so for this we can just click the CSS file, and then once we add this to the page, it's just like adding Bootstrap, but instead of the default Bootstrap styles, you get stuff that looks like this. So let's first take a tour of the things that got generated with the Vue CLI. For one, there's the Packagejson. This describes all the different things that can happen, like serving the app, or building the app, or linting the app. When you're using the CLI, it's not as simple as just like opening an HTML file in your browser, because there's a lot that needs to happen. Essentially, your Vue files need to be run through Webpack to get turned into something that the browser can actually understand. And so the Vue CLI service takes care of doing all of that. And this command actually runs the code inside of the source directory. So if you look at main.js, this is almost used to what you might have seen if you've only just been using basic Vue.js. However, it's doing some other things. So you see these import statements up at the top. If you have used Node.js, these are very similar to require. This is just a newer syntax for doing it. Basically, we're bringing in the Vue library and storing it in a variable called Vue. And then this is bringing in the app component and storing it in a variable called app. This is bringing in the router and storing in a variable called router. And so this file is kind of like the entry point into our Vue.js application. We aren't going to worry about routing right now. We just have like one basic route. And if we look at app.vue, this is kind of our top level component. And this is where it actually like loads in the routes. Have you seen these single file Vue components before, Tony?
I don't think so.
Okay.
Like
so,
once before in like a tutorial a long time ago.
Okay. Quick shout out from George. He has a fat old cat too. 14 years old and he weighs 10 kilograms. Wow.
Wow.
How fat is your cat, Tony?
Well, so we've got two of them. Jerry, I think he's like 14 pounds.
Okay.
But
let's do
he's hardy.
14 pounds, 2 kilograms. Wow.
Oh my god.
So yeah, I'm totally oblivious to the conversion. So 10 kilograms to pounds. 22? No way. That's crazy.
That's a big cat.
Cool. Sai, are you asking my name? My name is CJ. The guy that whose voice you're hearing is Tony. Um, if you need anyone else's name, just ask in the chat. Okay, that was a fun detour. But here's what we're gonna do. We're gonna like ignore what's going on in here for a second. I'm gonna delete the styles here. Get rid of this so there's just a router view. And the way you can think about this is, okay, app.view is our main component. And we are using a router, but basically we're saying load all of the routes into the main area of the app right there. Plain and simple. And then we do have one component, which is, one view, which is the home view. And because the way the routes are set up, it basically says when the URL is slash, load the home component into this area that has router view. I'm explaining all of this. We won't really have to use any of it. Basically, we're going to do all of our coding in one component file, and then later we might split it out. But this that we're looking at here is a single file component. So up at the top is our template. This is typically the stuff you would put like in ID equals app, like the where all your template code goes. And then down here is your component code. It's somewhat similar to like the Vue instance that you create if you're just using, if you've only been used to using like basic Vue.js, but this actually defines a reusable component. So this home component could essentially be used in like multiple places in our app if we wanted to. And this component is bringing in another component. It's a lot of stuff. I'm going to get rid of everything and make it super simple real quick. And so the home component is just going to have an H1 that says home. So now if we look at the browser, we should just see home. Because the way things are working is when the app loads up, the URL is slash. Notice the URL there. And when it's slash, it says load the home view. That's basically all we're going to worry about for now. We're going to put all of our code inside of this component, and later on we can start getting into the details of like making other components and bringing in other components. Sound good, Tony?
Sounds great.
Are you lost yet?
I'm still like, I'm trying to kind of translate what I know about React, the idea of components, and basically, instead of thinking it like a normal website or something, it's basically everything's broken up into smaller units, those being the components.
And we could even think about it as an example. So like, we're not going to get this detailed. Like we're going to have one component that is like everything on the page, but you could make them even smaller. Like you could have a search box component, you could have a details component, you could have a current weather component, you could have a weather timeline component. All of these things defined in separate files and then brought all together into a single file. We're going to be really simple and just have one component that has everything in it. But that's really the main idea, is splitting up your site into multiple different things. Okay, but we copied the CSS. Now we want to bring in Bootswatch. So in index.html, we're just going to bring that CSS in. So right up here, we'll add a link tag. We'll throw the Bootswatch URL there. And if we do a hard refresh on the page, now it has the basic Bootswatch styling. Okay, let's look at our README.
Looks good.
Sweet, Kaizen, thanks for dropping in. Have a good night. Cool. So we added the CDN. All right, so let's add the navbar. If we look at their docs here, we basically just want to use these. Which of the navbars do you want to use?
Let's use that nice little orange one right there.
Cool. So let's take a quick break. Okay. So we're just going to pull this code in. That should create a basic navbar. But here's the thing. I'm not actually going to put it in this home component. I'm going to put it in app.view right above the router view. Because the idea is if I put the navbar here, and Tony, you seem to have a lot of background noise going on.
No, I have to do the mic thing.
Just mute for a second. Okay, so in app.view, we're gonna put the nav here, and because we put it here and router view is here, the nav will be here, and the actual home page we created is gonna get loaded right below it. So now that we did that, cool little navbar up top, and then the home component is loading right below that. Cool. Good enough for me. What should we call this app? Are we gonna call it emoji weather? There's some
emoji.
Some sort of pun.
I think emoji.
Or like combined word or something.
I don't know enough weather terms.
Okay, cool. Emoji weather. Sounds good to me. Okay, let's look at our checklist. And I guess one thing I will do, just to add some like basic layout, we'll put like a main right there, and then give this a class of container. Give it some margin top, and that'll just do that. So now the weather will exist inside of there. Cool. All right, let's look at our checklist. We added the navbar. Now let's go sign up for the DarkSky API. Yeah, so to do this, you can go to darksky.net, click try for free, and then sign up. How do we want to do this, Tony? I guess, yeah, you should be able to sign up here. Are you already signed up?
Yeah, I think I'm signed up on my computer, yeah.
Would you like to log in on my computer? Would that be okay, so we can show them what it looks like?
Yeah, that's fine. I might have to reset my password. That's a little embarrassing. Yeah, hold on a second.
Sure.
Yeah, I guess if you had let me know like what we were going to use, we almost do like the whenever they do cooking shows, and it's like they've already cooked the thing underneath.
Actually, I mean, I'll just sign up again because it's easy enough. And then we'll use that.
All right.
So, well, I'm gonna sign up. Let's call this weather app. I have my own email server, so I can do this. So you register for it. It's gonna send an email. Let me go grab that confirmation. And it's pretty seamless because right when they send you the email, you instantly have access to the API.
Yeah, and I think like on the different packages that they have, like even the free one, you can have like a ridiculous number of calls. Like simple. Okay, so like.
Cool. So I confirmed it. I confirmed it in my email. I'm gonna log in, but I think you get 1,000 requests per day, which is pretty great.
Yeah, you get 1,000 calls for free each day. After that, they charge you. But...
Cool. So after signing up, I get my secret key, and now we can actually make requests to the API. I am going to reset this key after this episode airs, because if anybody had this, then their calls to the API would be put under my account. I don't want that to happen. It is still free. I haven't added a credit card or anything like that. I think if you want more calls, you can add a credit card, and that's when you really want to keep your key private.
And I think you could talk about like if somebody's worried about wasting their own calls on this, they could use something like Postman to help them out.
Yeah, definitely. So instead of just like making calls to this all day, actually, do I have Postman? I think I do. Yeah. So Postman is a tool that will let you make a request to an API and then see the response without having to like figure out how to call it with JavaScript and then like logging it into the console. So let's just try that real quick. And actually, what's that do? I want to do this. Themes, dark theme. There we go. Okay. So this is a basic tool. You can throw an API URL in there and see what you get back. So let's just try it. Well, that worked too. But if we copy this URL and throw it into Postman, we can see what this API will actually give us back. And let me do this. So it's giving us, so you'll notice in the URL, first there's my key, and then it has the latitude, longitude of the place we're requesting the forecast for. And then in the response, it'll give you that latitude and longitude back. It tells you what time zone this weather forecast is for, what the current forecast is. So the summary is that it's clear. It gives you a nice thing to use as icons. If you want to decide which emoji to display, for example, you can use that. Some other information like what's the current temperature, what's the apparent temperature, that's like what does it feel like versus what it actually is. You have humidity, pressure, wind speed, all that good stuff. And then they provide some pretty fine-grained details as well. So they also provide a minute-by-minute forecast. So this is, I think, maybe minutes for the next hour. And it shows the precipitation probability and intensity for every minute over the next hour. So you can see, like, we could use this and kind of like make a graph if we wanted to. We could show like low precipitation possibility and then higher and then lower. So we have all of that data. And then it also gives you back hourly. So this is every hour on the hour, what is the expected forecast? Gives you a nice little summary. And then you also have daily. So this is for like extended forecast. And I believe it gives you maybe 7 days by default. And then each one of these objects is the forecast for that next day. The time property on there actually has which day it's for, so you could look at that to determine what day the forecast is for. And it's just telling us the sources. So if you read their documentation, they use a lot of different services like the National Weather Association and various other weather sources to actually get this. And then also any of the stations used to collect the weather data. So you get a lot of stuff. And basically we're going to use, I think initially we're just going to use this data here to show the current forecast. Depending on how long it takes us, we might actually get into doing some of the other things.
Yeah, like maybe I think something that might be cool is, like you said, like have a up or down arrow for showing if there's going to be more precipitation within the hour.
Oh yeah, so we could look at the hourly forecast and say, okay, 1 hour from now there's more probability, so show an up arrow. If there's not, a down arrow. If it stays the same, don't show anything. Definitely. Cool. So that's all the data we're getting back. Let's see what we have in our to-do. So we signed up, we got the key. Let's actually write some code to make an API request to this. All right, here's what we're going to do, Tony. In the source directory, create a folder called lib. L-I-B.
All right, here
lib,
we go.
Short for library. So yeah, right click there, new folder. And the main thing is we're gonna put all of our code that makes the request to the API. It's just gonna be like one function, but we're gonna put that there, and then we're gonna bring that into our page and use that function inside of there, just to make things a little more modular. Now inside of this folder, create a file called API.js. You can do all caps for API. Cool. Now, up at the top, we're just going to create a variable to hold on to that URL. So just do like const API URL. Use all caps for API URL. Use an underscore. Capitalize URL. Just catch up in the chat real quick. Cool. Yeah, and so we're set this equal to, and I think I still have the URL on the clipboard. So just do single quotes and then paste in the whatever's on the clipboard. Does that work for you? I might have to do it. There we go.
Yeah, I think we don't share the clipboard.
Okay, cool. So we're just gonna hard code this to be Los Angeles for now. But that URL is what we're going to be making the request against. Great. And now we want a function that will actually make the request. So let's create a function. Let's call it get weather. Or get forecast? Get forecast. I don't know. What do you want to call it, Tony? You forgot the E in forecast. Cool. And this
Stop.
this function is going to actually make a request to the API. So for this, we're just going to use the built-in fetch. So do fetch, invoke it, and then pass in API URL. And then after the parentheses, do .then and invoke that. And then we're going to create a fat arrow function. The parameter is JSON. So before the fat arrow, put JSON. Lowercase JSON. Cool. And just right after the fat arrow, do sorry, this is not JSON. Let me help you out, Tony, because I know there's a little bit of delay. So this is response. And basically, you make the request, you get back the response, and then we want to return that response into JSON because we know that's what the server is giving us back. So right here, do response.json and invoke that. Okay, now we have it as JSON. Now we want to use it. So after the last parentheses, do another .then and invoke that. And this is going to get, let's call it the result. So this is going to be all of that data we saw in Postman. That's what's going to be inside of this variable. And then do a fat arrow, create a function body, and let's just log result inside of that function. Curly braces. Do a new line so it's a little easier to read. George is asking if I know any Greek words. I do not. Would you like to teach me some?
Isn't opa a Greek word? Like when you break a plate?
Opa! I think so, maybe. I'm pretty sure I've heard that.
I don't know if that's Greek.
Okay. But this, yeah, this should do it. There's a lot going on here. I'm going to reformat it a little bit. Makes it easier to read. We're going to do this and then this. Essentially, we're first making the request to the API. And this is something that's not going to complete immediately. It takes a second because it has to actually go through the internet. That makes the request, and then we use .then. So this is the promise interface of fetch. We're basically saying when the fetch is complete, then we're going to use that response that we got back, turn it into JSON. This also returns a promise. So when that is complete, then we get access to the result, which is an actual object, and then we're just logging it to the screen. And you have to do it this way. You can't just say like const result equals that, and then log the result and like expect to have access to all of the data. You have to follow this promise format because we need to actually wait for the data to come back. Sai in the chat asked if I have any Indian friends. Actually, don't. Don't know many in the Denver area. I used to work with a lot of Indian people at my last company. George is saying Opa is for when you're having a good time, like dancing and singing. I will scream it the next time we do something good with our code. Opa! Cool. So this is great. We created this function. Let's try to use it. So we have this function. We want to make this function available inside of our component. So first thing we need to do is export this function. Tony, can you unmute your mic?
Yep.
Cool. So are you familiar with, like, when you're using Node, there's like module.exports?
Mm-hmm.
And that basically makes something in one file available to another file that requires it. This
Yeah,
okay. Yeah, so this is going to do something very similar, but we're using, like, instead of using module.exports, you just use the word export. Let's take a quick break.
Opa!
Opa! Cool. So right below this, we're going to export an object that has the function inside of it. So do export default, and then create an object that has get forecast inside of it. Cool. I'm going to reformat that just a little bit. Just do this. And basically, we've defined this in this file, and then we're exporting get forecast so that we can bring it into another file. So now inside of home.view, we're going to import that function in so that we can use it inside of this component. So here, we're going to say import API from, and then in single quotes, do @/lib/API. It should be all caps API, yeah. And basically this @ sign is a shorthand for the source directory. So it basically says, go into this folder, go into the lib folder, and grab what was ever exported from here and make that available right here as the variable API. So now we have access to that. Let's look at our README. So we created the module, we created the function. Now let's actually call this API in the mounted method of the component. So inside of our home component, basically whenever this component is ready to go is when we want to call the API. So in Vue.js, you can use the mounted method. And essentially this gets called when the component is added to the page and is ready to go. So inside of here, we're actually going to make the request to the API. So Tony, in this mounted function, I want you to do API.getForecast. And by doing this, we are actually calling the function defined in that other file. Then invoke it. And that should be enough. So just by doing this, we've defined the function in here, we've exported it, we've imported it in here, and then called it in our mounted function. So now when the page loads, we should see some API data in our console. So DevTools. I actually didn't look into this. No, so it says failed to load, no access control allow origin header is present on the requested resource. You might actually get this a lot when you're dealing with APIs if they're not set up for that. So let's look at their documentation to see if they support cores, and if they don't, we might have to use a proxy. So let's look at the docs. Nothing about cores. Let's see if you can do, well, nope. I have a feeling we're going to have to use an API proxy. DarkSky cores. Frequently asked questions. Nope, nope, nope. Anything about cores. Okay. Why do I get the error? We take security very seriously at DarkSky. As a security precaution, we have disabled cross-origin resource sharing. Your API call includes your secret API key as part of the request. If you want to make the API calls from client-facing code, anyone could extract that. Cool. To prevent key abuse, you should use a proxy server. That's what I suspected. We could set up our own proxy server, but we're not going to do that. There is this free proxy server set up called Cores Anywhere. And yeah, well, I just searched npm. I think we see it on GitHub. They actually have it deployed where you could just use it on the web. So yeah, they actually have it deployed here on Heroku. And essentially what you can do is you put the URL you want to make the request to at the end of this URL, and that server will make the request on your behalf and then send back the data to you with the cores header set. Are you following?
It's like an API. It's like an API butler.
Yeah. You say, hello, Mr. API, will you please make this request to this other API for me? He does that, and then he returns it on a nice silver platter without raising any errors. Cool. Yeah, question in the chat real quick. Which do I prefer, React or Vue? I do prefer Vue.js, and I like it because there are a lot of things built in that you have to do manually in React. I come from an Angular 1 background. I did Angular 1 for over 3 years, and I really came to like it. And I tried out Angular 2, and it's a totally new framework. Like almost everything is different from Angular 1. And Vue.js takes a lot of its directives. They're very similar to the way they were in Angular 1. I also think Vue.js is a lot easier for beginners to learn. Today, we're using the CLI tool, and we're using single file components. Like, this is a lot of concepts to take in, and we're using modules. But if you check out the last episode with Tony, we did no build tools, just a basic HTML file, and we used Vue.js, and it was easy enough to get up and going. So those are the main things I like Vue for. And yeah, Vue is picking up in certain areas. I know, like, across Europe, Vue.js is, like, really big. The first VueConf was held in Poland, and then the second was in Amsterdam, and then recently VueConf was held in New Orleans. But it's Vue.js is even bigger in Europe than it is in the United States. Cool. So all of that to say, we're going to take this URL and we're going to put it in front of the URL that we're making the request to. So let's do this, Tony. Create a variable, let's call it proxy, and set it equal to, well, I'll paste it for you. Set it equal to that. And then we're going to make this a template string. And we're going to put proxy at the beginning of this. So do you remember how to use template literals?
Not exactly. I know that we can basically like put something on there without having to append it.
Right. And so the syntax is $ curly braces, and then you put the name of the variable inside of the curly braces. Cool. And essentially what this does is it concatenates the two strings together, but it's a little bit cleaner syntax. And while we're at it, let's create a variable for our API key too. So like we could say like API key goes there, and then we could have a variable that is set to that. And then we could even take the location and put that in a variable. Set it equal to that. And now if we want to change some things, we don't have to like go into this string. We can just change it here, and it'll automatically update. But basically what we've done is we have put this proxy URL in front of the API URL, and now that's going to make the request on our behalf. And actually, before we make the request, if we just log the API URL, we can see that it's actually going through that proxy server. So let's see if it worked. And I think it did. Yeah, so you'll notice the URL is now cores anywhere, and then it has what we were trying to make the request to. And basically, that server made the request on our behalf and then added the cores header to the response. And we actually got back the response. Opa!
Nice.
Cool. And so like if you ever, and actually let's see what that I'm gonna change this back so it's not using the proxy, just to show that error again, because a lot of beginners get this error and have like no idea what to do. But this is the common error. No access control allow origin header is present on the requested resource. What this really means, like if you click the network tab in Chrome and you click on and see where that request was made to. So this right here is the request to the API. On the response, there is no header called access control allow origin that says who can make the requests. So basically the browser stops it from happening. It's like, hey, you can't request this server. But if we put the proxy in front of it, this will set that header. And so now if we look at the request, you'll see the request is going to this URL, and then in the response headers, they added that access control allow origin. So basically they're saying the browser can make the request there. Cool. Does that make sense, Tony? In a way?
DevTools makes very little sense to me, so I'm just going to say yes for the sake of moving on.
Cool. Yeah, and there's a lot of stuff going on in here, but essentially this shows you all of the network requests and everything happening under the hood. Okay, so we're getting back the data. Let's check off in the README. So we called the API in a mounted method of the component. Let's add the current weather to the page. So here's what we need to do. Right now, our function here is making the request, but it's just logging out the result. It's not actually sending it back so we can use it inside the component. So what we need to do is we need to return this so that way we can use .then inside of the component. So bear with me here, Tony. Put the return statement in front of the fetch there. And so when we call this function, it's going to return the invocation of fetch and then the invocation of the .then, and the return of that is a promise. So now inside of our component, we can say get forecast .then, and then invoke that. And the parameter can just be result. And then we can do a fat arrow, give it a function body, a new line, and log that result out. Need some help, Tony?
The lag is killing me, man.
Okay, cool. Let's do this. So call that function and then get access to the result and now log it inside of here. This is like a slight change, but really the main thing now is instead of logging it in this file, we now have access to it in the component so we can actually use that data on our page. Let's see what we
Does that need a little semicolon on there?
Not required, but yeah, we'll add it. Cool. Let's just put all of this on our data. So right here on the component, let's add a data property, but this is going to be a function. So just do data parentheses and give it its curly braces. So this is a function outside the parentheses. Okay. And then add a comma after the second curly brace just to make the object correct. And then this data function is going to return an object. So do return, and then just return an object literal, which is the curly braces. Run. Question in the chat. What do I think about all the hatred for JavaScript among developers? And have I tried TypeScript? I'm really liking TypeScript. Yeah, I think it's slowly changing. The thing is, like, JavaScript was not the best language for a very long time and didn't have a lot of features. And the nature of JavaScript is you're typically working inside of a browser, and there's all kinds of browser quirks and like support that's not across all browsers. So there's a lot of headaches involved. And then also the fact that it is very dynamic and not statically typed. And if you're coming from a statically typed language, it can seem very weird to you or like out of place. I've come to love it. I came from a C#.NET background. And so I did a lot of object-oriented programming and like statically typed languages for a very long time, and then really got into JavaScript. Yeah, if you're working on a larger code base, it can be a pain if you don't know like what a function accepts or what it's actually going to return, which is where TypeScript comes into play, because you annotate your code that says this function will return a number, or this variable is a number. It can only have numbers inside of it. Yeah, I think people can have their opinions. There's no one best thing, but JavaScript can be used in lots of different places, like on embedded devices, to build web pages, to build servers with Node. And knowing that one language, you can build all kinds of apps. So, yeah. Okay, Tony, are you ready?
I'm ready.
Cool. So we are returning this object. This object here is our data. So if you remember back when we built the Craigslist scraper, our data had what it had. It had like results. It had whether or not the page was loading. It had the search terms, right? Data was all of the state and data for the page. And so this is a very similar thing. The only difference is instead of data being an object, it's a function that returns an object. And that's mainly because we're using a component. This isn't just a Vue instance. But on the data, we should add a, let's call it forecast property. So create forecast and then just set it equal to an empty string. So do a colon, empty object. Cool. And so initially when the page loads, that's totally empty. But then after we get back the result, we want to actually set the forecast to be the result. So right here, we're going to say this.forecast equals result. Cool. And so now we got that data back. We put it on this.forecast. This.forecast points to this forecast here. And so now inside of the template, we actually have access to forecast. So I'm just going to do this forecast. And we should
What is
see,
the pre-tag?
it just gives it nice formatting like this. Because like if I did a div, everything would be like all jumbled up like that.
Oh god. Is that something native to Vue, or is that like if I was just doing like a...
It's an HTML tag, so you can look at it. Has default styling of like a monospace font, and yeah, so it's actually built into the browser.
Okay, so if I'm ever just doing like practice with something, I could use pre to make the JSON look nice and pretty.
Exactly, and the other thing is like a pre-tag will keep all of the character encoding. So like this JSON has new lines in it, like returns, but if you ever put text inside of a div with returns, it just puts it all on one line anyways. It doesn't recognize those. But a pre-tag will recognize the new lines and actually show them. So yeah. Cool.
That's really cool.
We could leave our app like this, but it's not very pretty. So now we want to actually pull some data off of this. And this whole object is now on forecast. So inside of our template, if we did forecast.currently.summary, we could see what the forecast is for the current location, right? Let's talk about how we actually want to put this on the page. Like, should we try to emulate this, or what are you thinking, Tony, in terms of layout?
I'm thinking of like classic like Weather Channel thing. Like it's almost like looks like a, you know, bear with me. We could use like a card type styling, where we have like a little image of our emoji that reflects the weather, the temperature like right next to it or underneath it, and then it says like the high and the low, and then maybe our up and down arrow.
Okay, like all on a card, maybe
for
like
next
the
hour.
Center of the page.
Yeah, and then like, you know, like future to do would be like you can click to the right, or it would have like a little card next to it that would show like tomorrow and yesterday's forecast.
Okay, I like it. This was my break timer. If you're at home, take a quick stretch, take a sip of your beverage you have nearby, maybe stand up out of your chair. Are you sitting down, Tony?
Yeah, I think stand-up desks are a fad.
Cool.
I will sit for life.
Sai, if you want to share a link, I think you can like paste it in, just get rid of the HTTP and like put a space before the .com, and I can try to load it up. Not sure what you're trying to share though. But yeah, let's look at Bootswatch real quick. They do have cards like these.
Yeah, we used cards last time for our Craigslist app.
Which one should we use?
Let's use I want to use a bright orange one. We're already using let's do that one right there below.
That one?
The second one from no. Go back up. The one right below the orange box.
This one?
Yeah, it's beautiful. Okay. It's perfect.
Cool. Let's see what we need. I believe it's going to be this one. Let's try to use it. For now, we'll just throw it right here, see what we get. Where's our Vue app? Let's put that over here. Cool. Got a little card. Do we want this to fill up like or do we want this to be like centered?
Yeah, nice and centered. It doesn't have to fill up the whole thing. I personally like it when it's just like a nice little slab of information. Like I don't like it when the weather takes up the whole page.
Okay. But I guess let's try to center it. That has some basic width on it. We could use the Bootstrap grid system. So if we take a look at the Bootstrap, not that, Bootstrap website, look at their documentation under layout and grid. They have this, but we could use offsets to basically like make a column in the center of the page. Yeah, offsetting columns. So you could do like an offset of 3 and then give the card a width of 6, and then basically there'll be 3 columns on both sides of the card but with nothing inside of them. So
Yeah, what about that one below that?
this one?
Right there.
Or,
The column offset mid 3. Right.
yeah.
Yeah.
So I think we'll do this because that column there will basically make empty space. Oh wait, sorry. You know, we'll do this one because that will show up here. But instead of making it width 3, we can make it width 6, so it takes up like twice as much space, and then the right-hand side will be empty. That's my thought. So let's put that there as reference. Put that there. Zoom out just a little bit. Okay, here's what we do, Tony. So basically, we want this card to be inside of a row like that. So right above the card, create a div and give it a class of row. Good night, George. See you later. Sai, what's at that link? Why does it look like that? Oh, you got rid of the this. Cool. I'm going to help you out real quick because I know there is lag. Basically, the card is now going to go inside of there. Awesome. I'm going to get rid of this default styling. And basically, we just need to add these classes to the card. So on the card, go ahead and add those columns. And instead of MD, just leave the MD off, and that means for all devices. Tony, what are you doing? Okay, now try. Yeah, so just do offset -3. Don't do the MD. And before the offset, add a class of column -3. And so, let's do a column -6. So that will make this card take up 6 columns, and then will be offset 3 columns on the left-hand side, which should put it at the center. Let's see. Well, let's do this. There we go. Actually, we might want to wrap the card in another div because it's doing interesting things with the header. Let's do this. Let's pull those classes off, make a parent div with those classes, and then put the card inside of that div. There we go. That's what we're looking for. And we could even do like offset 2 with column of 8. That'll make it a little bit wider. What do you think of that, Tony?
That looks like a nice healthy card.
Cool. Nice. So what do we want to put in the header? Do we want to put the location or?
I think we could just put current weather.
Okay. Let's do that. So write that right there. Cool. If we save that, we should see that. Awesome. Now, I guess for the secondary card title, do you want to put the summary?
Yeah, that's perfect. We'll put like the summary, and then below that would be the emoji.
Okay. So right here is where we're going to use handlebars. And so to get access to summary, we basically have to traverse this object. So the whole object is forecast. So if you do forecast dot, And then what's the next thing we need access to?
Currently.
Yeah, so do dot currently. And then we want summary, so do dot summary.
I was about to do like the whole weather channel like currently in your area, like, but
But you didn't. But then you did anyways. Cool.
yeah.
So that shows the summary, and then below that we're gonna show, I guess, the emoji. Do you want to? Where do you want to show like the? You want to show the temperature and everything on the next line, or what?
How about we do like an emoji and then like the temperature is like to the right of it, so they're both kind of centered,
Okay, cool. So like this would be
and it's just
like like two columns. Like the left column is the emoji, the right column is like temperature, precipitation, wind speed.
yeah. I mean, I kind of thought like everything would be nice and centered, like it says clear in the center,
Okay.
and then right below that emoji, and then temperature, and then below that some more information.
Should be easy enough actually. So let's on here. I think there's a built-in class called like text center. Yeah, so that puts it all in the center. And then on the card text, this is where we can put first the emoji. I think for now, let's just show the icon name. So let's do, yeah, forecast.currently.icon. Okay. And then here's my thought though. If we put this in a div, and then like we throw another div below that, will that still look okay? Cool. Yeah. And then what do we want to see below the icon?
Well, like not really anything below the icon. Like I thought the temperature, like so the temperature and the emoji icon would be in their own div, so we can,
Oh,
I
okay.
guess.
Okay, yeah, so I guess for now we can just put them side by side, and then in a second we'll work on spacing. So just throw the property name for the temperature on there. Nice. And I believe by default it's Fahrenheit. I don't know if it gives you that in the response.
Oh yeah, that'd be a nice little thing. Like there could be like maybe a tiny little C or F next to it, and you can switch back and forth.
Yeah, it comes here. The units are US. Like if we look at their documentation, let's look for units. Yeah, if US, then we know it's Fahrenheit. Anything else is going to be Celsius.
Oh, that'd be funny if we for the we do emoji even for that, so it's like an American flag, and then it just there's the world flag for selecting the temperature.
Right, because we are the only country, well, one of 2 or 3 countries that uses the imperial system still. Right now, let's just hard code it. So I think we can do. Is there a degrees? Degree? Oh, what does that do? That's cool. Look at that. How convenient. Okay, so that shows the temperature. And what do you want to show?
Was that an emoji?
Yeah, well, it's so on the Mac there is this. Here you can search for emojis, but they also have like symbols, and these symbols should still render like on Windows and other types of machines. Because like when I was building the calculator last night, there is a division symbol, and it's not technically an emoji; it's like a Unicode character. So.
Yeah, because even the emojis aren't necessarily standard. I think like each machine has its own like stylings for the emojis.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like there's the Apple specific ones and the Windows specific ones and Android specific ones.
Yeah, I think one day for like an art project, I want to do that.
The Unicode, like the encodings are the same across platform, but how they choose to render them is different.
Right, and like I remember like some format, some like computer or something like changed their emoji rendering a while back, and everybody was upset. They're like, it was worse. I don't know. It's a whole other
thing. What do we want to show next?
I thought up or down arrow. Isn't that what we were saying for the precipitation in the next hour?
That's gonna take some logic. Do you just want to show the chance of precipitation right now? Like
Yeah, maybe you could even just say, yeah.
Cool, because I want to spend some time making sure we can get the emojis on the page, and then maybe we'll work on like telling what's coming up. Okay. Do you want that to be on the next line? Or on the same line?
Yeah, like right underneath the emoji and the temperature.
Okay. So just throw that there. Oh, sorry, just a second. Go ahead. All right, I'll help you out with this typo. Precip probability, and let's throw like a percent sign on there. Anything else, Tony?
I think that's it. I mean,
Okay.
unless somebody in chat has an idea of like what else is more relevant.
Okay, I think that should work for now. Let's work on getting these emojis working. So if we look in their documentation, they tell you all the possible conditions like rain, cloudy, sunny. Where are they? What's the current? The current one is clear day. Let's just search for that in the docs. Yeah, so these are all of our options: clear day, clear night, rain, snow, sleet, wind, fog, cloudy, partly cloudy day, partly cloudy night. And then it was saying those are the ones that exist right now, and that's all your possible things. But in the future, you might get something else like those. But here's what I want to do. We're going to create an object where all of the keys are the different possible conditions, and then the values are going to be the corresponding emoji. Sound good, Tony?
Sounds good.
Cool. So using that, we can basically just use the icon they gave us back from the request and automatically pick which emoji to have. So let's do this. On our data, we're going to now have, we'll call it icons. It's going to be an object with that in there. But let me format this a little bit. So, yeah, so clear day is going to have, we'll choose the emojis in a second. I just want to get the thing all formatted. And then clear night. Let's do this. Okay.
How are you able to select a whole bunch of stuff like that? By the way,
Command D is the thing. Actually, that did not do the thing I wanted it to do. But yeah, Command D will let you do it. So like I selected the comma and I was like select every other comma, and let's do a colon, that, and then a new line. Cool. Decent. And then we'll just have to fix these.
but that still like beats having to go through like every single line.
Yeah. Okay, so we have our basic icons. Let's choose which emojis we want. So for clear day, what should it be?
Let's do the meh emoji.
Meh? Which one is that?
Or it's like there's just like real plain face looking one.
Just like no smile?
Right there.
This one?
No, down, no, down. Down.
Confused?
Down. Right. Up,
This one.
up. There you go. Neutral face.
Okay, so clear
Perfect.
day. Uh, I think there are some night emojis.
Yeah, let's see that little weird moon. It's like the moon looks like he's going meh.
The full moon, or new
Yeah,
moon.
yeah, full moon.
Okay.
No, full moon. It's perfect.
All right. I think there's like an umbrella emoji. Or do you want to do clouds?
Yeah, that little umbrella with it. No, do the umbrella with the rain. That's perfect.
Nice. I think there also is a snow emoji. Which one?
Yeah, I think little snowman.
Little snowman. Cool.
You need to put rain and snow in quotes as well?
I don't. So the only reason, and this is good to note, the only reason I had to put quotes around these is because it's not valid to have a dash in a property name. So you put the quotes on there, and
Oh,
that
okay.
makes it valid. But for these, there's no dash or anything, so you don't need it. Not sure what we're gonna do for sleet. Is there like hail?
Let's just do like an ice cube or something.
Ice
Um,
cream.
just put an ice cream cone. Why not?
Okay. And then for wind.
Yeah, there's like a puff of smoke. Yeah, it looks like it's farting on you, the weather.
Yeah, let's do this. Never mind. All right. And then is there fog? Ooh, like a foggy mountain. What do you think of that? Can we do like a
That's good.
frog?
Yeah, do a frog.
Okay. Clouds.
Yeah, just do that little white cloud.
This one? Partly cloudy
Yeah, it's perfect.
day. I think there were some like clouds with the sun. Like that one.
Yeah, like that bottom right one. Or yeah, there you go.
And then partly cloudy night. What about Milky Way?
Yeah, that's nice. I don't know if that communicates the information, but it's a nice emoji. It's good enough.
Cool. I'm gonna go through the chat real quick. Sai asked if I'm on Quora. I am not on Quora. Cassandra, welcome to the chat. Hello, just stopping by to say hello and also say that I think this is a valuable project. Why? Because I had to build this exact thing in an hour, but using React and Redux in an interview. Wow. Cool. But all right, Tony, we've got ourselves some emojis. Now it's going to be as simple as, so on our data, we have this icons property. And basically, given the icon that was returned from the forecast, we want to pick out the icon that has that forecast name. So all we have to do right here is say icons, brackets, icon. And that should give us the right one. There you go. Let's bump up the font size, like way up. For one,
yeah, for both temperature and the emoji.
Okay. Let's give this a custom class. We'll call this like icon temp. So that has a class on it. One thing we haven't used yet is, so inside of a single file component, you also have the style tag. And this style tag can specify any classes for this component or the rest of the app, depending on how you do it. So I'm going to say icon temp. We'll do like font size is 4M. We'll like blow it up huge. Hard refresh. Nice. And actually, let's increase the font size of everything, right?
Should we try like going in the dev tools and changing the like weather state just to test that the other emojis work?
Yeah, so we can actually do this. When we get back the result, we could say result.currently. Oh, actually, You should never do this, but this should allow us to check. If we do window.forecast equals this.forecast. Now, in the DevTools, we should be able to say like forecast.currently.icon. So forecast.currently.icon. And if we set that equal to rain, we see the rain. If we set that equal to snow, we see the snow. What else is there?
I think there was hail or sleet.
Hail. Oh, don't do that.
I don't know what's the real one. Hail or sleet.
It's yeah, I guess they don't.
Yeah, it's sleet.
They don't have hail. Cool. Ice cream. Actually, here's what I want to do. So I just bumped up the body font to 3M. If we do, let's do the body font as like 2M. Okay, so a little bit smaller. But then let's make icon temp a little bit bigger, and then I want to make the emoji like really big. Like this, just the emoji itself, not the temperature.
Right.
Cool. And then let's just like bump that emoji way up. Let's put the emoji inside of a span. And we will give this a class of emoji. And then let's create an emoji class with a font size of 2M. I think it compounds, so yeah. And if we refresh the page, we should see the current weather. Cool. This is great.
It's so beautiful.
And let's stop putting that on window. Okay. The one thing that you wanted to do was to say, wait. In the chat real quick, some stuff is going on. Cassandra loves emojis. Kyle just yelled, CJ, no, about the window. Which window? What did I do with the window?
You did the window load thing for the state, or like the checking the emojis. Like we could just change it in the DevTools.
Yeah, totally. That was just to show like the reactive nature and just like test the different ones. Actually, to make this app more useful, Tony, I think we should make it so that they can set their location. Rather than doing the arrows.
We already created that as a variable.
Yeah, so let's work on that. Let's add like a little input box up here where you can type your location, click go, and then it updates the weather based on that. Let's do that. Okay. So
You want to do that right above the current weather?
I think so, like a simple little form input box right there.
Search box, yeah.
Yeah. Let's look at the components in here. Input group. I believe there's an input group that has like a button on it. Yeah, like this. I think this would be good because we could do a nice little box that says like go or search or update or something like that.
Yeah, we just have to go back on the DarkSky thing and see how the format is for the API. Because I think you can put, in place of the coordinates, I think you can just put like the location name.
I don't think
and it'll like.
I was reading the docs, but I found their undocumented geocoding API, and I think we'll use that. Like that doesn't work. You have to put in latitude, longitude.
Just type in Denver.
Let's see.
Like I don't know.
Mm-mm. But
okay, never mind.
Snooping on their site, I found this undocumented API. You can pass in a location, and it gives you back a latitude, longitude. And then they have this other API where you can pass in a latitude, longitude, and it'll give you like an approximate address.
Oh, so we can just take whatever they put in and just convert it to that.
Exactly. So whatever they type in, we make the request here and then get back latitude, longitude. And then if we want to display something useful, we could make the request here to show what to actually display. All right, let's take a quick break. Cool. Let's work on that form. Let's see what time it is. Yeah, so I do want to end the stream within the next 20 minutes or so. So I'm going to do a bit more of the typing, Tony, but please speak up at any time We are going to grab this one because that's equal to that one. And we should be able to just throw it right above the card. And actually, let's put this div inside of a div that has column 8, so it should like line up like right above the card. Let's see what it does. That didn't work. Oh, we need to offset it too. Cool. So we should be able to type, instead of recipient's username, let's say enter location. Or get rid of the accessibility stuff. And this will say search. That's pretty cool. Cool. So if I say Denver, Colorado, and click search, that should update this to show the weather for that location. Let's hook that up. So on this button, Tony, do @click, and we're going to create a method on our component called update location. So just call it update location. And we also need to keep track of what they're typing into the input. So on the input, we'll use vModel. So do v-model. Yeah, so on the chat, Magneto mentioned a future edition could be using the HTML5 location API. Absolutely. So that allows you to request the user's location. They can click allow, and then it just uses the device's location feature. Like, I think if it doesn't have GPS, it bases it off of like IP address. And if you're on a phone, you can actually get like high fidelity location information. And Emmy shouts out to Tony. Thank you again for being a good noob. It's very helpful for us.
I do my best to stay confused.
Okay, so on this vModel, we want to put something that's on our data. So let's just say location. And basically, as they type into this input, it'll get stored on location. So on our data, we need location. So add location and initialize it to an empty string. And throw a comma after that. Yep. And so as they type, it'll be updating location. And then when they click the search button, it's going to call update location. So we need a method now called update location. So we could specify our methods. We've got update location. And just right here, I'm going to log out this dot location so we can see that whatever they type in, cannot read properties. What's happening? Oh, I see. When the page loads, there is no weather data yet. So it's trying to render out like forecast.currently, but that's actually like undefined, right? So here's what we can do. Let's initialize forecast to be null. And then only show this card if forecast exists. So now when the page loads, the card will be empty, but the moment the weather comes back, the card pops up. Cool. But what we were just testing is like if I enter Denver, Colorado and click search, it logs that out. So now we need to make a request to this API to get back the latitude, longitude. So let's try to do that. I actually haven't tested this like with a proxy server. If it doesn't work, we'll do something else. I don't know. But in here, we now want a function that accepts a location and returns a latitude, longitude. So Tony, will you create for me a function called get coordinates? And that accepts in the location. And now we have, I'll create it for you. We have this new API. So this is the geo API URL. And we'll throw the proxy in front of that. And I'm going to rename this API URL to be weather API URL just to differentiate them. Okay, so inside of get coordinates, it's going to do a very similar thing as get forecast, but instead we're going to make the request against the geo API URL, and we're going to put the location on the end of the URL. So just do a return fetch. And in there, let's use a template string. And the first thing will be the geo API URL. You might not know where the backticks are. There they are. So then do your $ curly braces and put the geo API URL in there. And there's a question in the chat. Sai has seen my Code War streams. Have I tried competitive programming on HackerRank or TopCoder? I have not. I've looked at those sites, and I actually did an interview for a company, and they had a HackerRank challenge that I had to do, but I haven't done much practicing on those sites. So that puts the URL in, and basically right after the URL, we want to put the location, because that's essentially going to append the location to the end of the query string, or yeah, to the query string. Yes. And then I will help you out because it's just this. So we should be able to get the coordinates and then get back the JSON response. I'm also going to export the get coordinates function. Okay. And now in our component, let's try to get the coordinates for the location that they put in. So right here, we're going to say API.getCoordinates, and we'll pass in this .location, and then do a .then, get the result, and log out the result. Looks like you've invented a new programming language, Tony. Let me help you out.
What am I doing right now?
Okay, cool. So first we need to invoke get coordinates. So you need parentheses. And then we're going to pass in this .location because this .location is what they actually typed into the input box. So that's going to pass it into that function. And then we just do exactly what we did like with this one up here. So you just do .then, invoke it, pass in result, and then just inside that function body log out the result. Don't forget the fat arrow. Whoa now. Are you getting tired, Tony?
I had a long day.
Okay. Let me help you out. So I want this to be on a new line. I want this to be a fat arrow. I want this to be on a new line. And then here we will log result. Okay. So if this works, when we click the search button, we should get back some latitude, longitude. Let's see. So do hard refresh. Do like Denver, Colorado. Search. Ah, we got it. That's exciting.
Wow, that is really cool.
Cool. So now that we have the latitude, longitude, we want to pass that into our get weather function and use that latitude, longitude instead. Right? Right. So now get forecast, instead of just hard coding the location on the end here, here's what we'll do. We are going to accept in the latitude and the longitude. And then on the end of this string, we're basically putting the latitude comma longitude on the end there. So we'll do lat comma long. And inside of our component, when we do mounted, we'll default to Los Angeles. So like when the component is mounted, we'll do get forecast with latitude, longitude, and let's see what happens. Cool. So that defaults to Los Angeles. But now, after we've gotten back the coordinates, we want to do this same request, but we want to pass in result.latitude and result.longitude. Before we do that, I think I'm going to pull this into a function so that we can call it in multiple places. Like on my methods, I'll say like load weather with latitude and longitude. And that will do this. And when it's mounted, we'll say this.load weather, and we'll pass in the latitude and the longitude. And now all we have to do is call this right there. So right here, Tony, make that result.latitude. You have to type out the full latitude. And then for that one, it should be result.longitude. Cool. And that, my friend, should do it. So enter your location in, Tony. And then click search. Mostly cloudy. Cool. Moscow. Antarctica? It's nighttime there. Cool. Negative 64 degrees? I can't hear you, Tony.
Nice.
Yeah, that's awesome. It's working. I think one last thing I do want to do is actually show the location that you typed in. Like, what is the approximate address? Because right now, like when the page loads, you have no idea that this is Los Angeles or whatever.
Like, it's you like current weather in, and then just put like current weather in wherever. Like, just put in.
But I don't
Los
think,
Angeles.
Yeah, I don't think the. Here's what I want to do, because I found this other API where you pass it a latitude longitude and it gives you back an address.
Well, I think in the DarkSky thing, like the latitude and longitude gives like a name of the area. I think that might have been one of the things.
It gives a time zone. Here, we can look at the network request. So let's do. Yeah, so this is requesting it, and in the response, you have a time zone, but we can look at preview. Yeah, but I don't think we have like street location. Like let's try Tokyo again. Yeah, I mean, I guess we could put the time zone.
Well, try like a city that is like on the West Coast, like Seattle or something that doesn't have.
Oh wow.
Okay, so okay.
Yeah, so Seattle is in the Los Angeles time zone. Interesting. This should be easy enough, and we can make like one more API request. Let's do that. Yeah, no, there's a good suggestion in chat from Magneto. Maybe just store the location in local storage. I think I like that. So if you search for a place, we'll store that in local storage, and then the next time the app starts up, we'll just use the last location that you searched. What do you think?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Cool.
Yeah, I think it'd even be cool if kind of like we could do. I mean, obviously, like I think we should kind of just be done with this fairly soon. But like we could almost do like the same thing we did with the Craigslist one, where like your last several searches could be like little things that pop up, like little
Yeah, so
tabs
like
above the card.
it could be even like your oh yeah, so you could have like frequent locations. You could just click one to show those results.
Yeah, yeah,
Or even like what if you had like several cards across and like those are all the places you care about the weather in? Yeah, we could do a lot of things.
exactly. Yeah.
Let's get this API request going, and I think we'll call it there. Were there anything else that we mentioned we were going to do that we didn't? Uh,
I mean, aside from like an arrow function with a precipitation, like that was pretty much it.
okay. And I think like future enhancement is,
Oh, the weather app, the weather map, rather.
oh, that honestly might be really easy. We'll do that. So, okay, here's what I do. I want to show location name, and that's going to be an API request, and then we'll add the weather map. Yeah, so suggestion in the chat is to use the location the user searched for. I guess the only thing is whatever they type in could be anything. Like I don't know, Washington. And is this Washington State? Is this Washington D.C.? Is it really 81?
Yeah, I think it just auto corrects it.
And that's why I want to know like what did the API decide, like what did the API interpret this as? Um let's just do that real quick. So this is the like the address lookup. Throw that in here. So we've got the geo API URL. We've got the address API URL. Again, we'll use our proxy. Then we'll throw that in. And we need to parameterize that. And then we need a function called get address at the latitude and longitude. It's going to do a very similar thing. So we're going to fetch to the address API URL. And then on the end of it, we need the lat to go right there and the longitude to go right there. Tony, this is where template strings really come in useful, right? When you actually have like other things inside of your string and you want to be appending to that.
Yeah.
Cool. So that should give us the address, and we'll use that. Okay. So we want to call this function in our component as well. We could do this. We could say API dot. Actually, I guess we can. API dot get address, and then we'll say this dot address equals result. I'm thinking we might actually use a promise.all so it does both of these at the same time, but I guess we don't care as much. But now on our data, we need an address property. And this gives us name and street. So here we can say current weather in address dot name address dot street. Current weather in San Francisco, California, West Road. If we do Tokyo and then search current weather in just Tokyo. Let's look at the request that went out. Oh, just name. Okay.
There are no streets in Tokyo.
Guess not. Can we just put the location name, or do you want it to say current weather?
No, that's fine.
Cool. Columbus. North High Street. Know where that is, Tony?
Yeah, I think it's downtown.
Cool.
It's pretty toasty today.
Yeah, actually, what is it in Denver? 65. Nice. Cool. That did it. Let's store the location they entered in local storage so that when you come back to the page, it shows your preferred location. Sound good?
Sounds great.
Cool. So, let's say whenever whenever update location is called, we want to set that in local storage. So we'll say this.local storage dot location is going to be this.location. So that's basically whatever they typed into the input box. And then whenever we load the weather, we're going to set that as the latitude and longitude. So this.local storage dot lat is lat, and it's not this.local storage, it's just local storage. I messed that up. And then local storage, yep. Local storage dot lng is lng.
So if they didn't have anything on local storage, it would just default to Los Angeles.
Yeah, and so that we'll have to set that up next. But I guess here's what I'm going to do also is like when the page loads, if local storage.location is a thing, we'll use that. Otherwise, just set it to the empty string. And then I guess we need to store the address too. Let's do this. We'll do an array with result.name and result.street, and we'll join that with a space. And now we can just do address. Let me see what that does.
Yeah, it worked.
Do I have any errors though? Did it?
Because
Okay, well, here's the curious
yeah,
one.
because it defaulted.
Yeah, so when Tokyo doesn't have a street, it just automatically appends it. Cool. That works. So now that we have a nice little address, let's store that in local storage too. Cool. All right, so when the page loads, address is either local storage.address or the empty string. And then when the page loads, load the weather with local storage.lat or Los Angeles and local storage.launch or okay, this should do it. So that's there. But if I do a search for Tokyo, that gets stored. And now if I do a hard refresh, the page loads with Tokyo. And if we change it to Denver, we get Denver's location. But even if I close the tab and then go back to it, we get Denver.
Nice.
Yay! So the way that's working, though, if you haven't worked with local storage, it's essentially, and actually, do I have any other weird things in here? Yeah, there's like a token from some other stuff. But basically, it's a key value store. So anytime I said location dot something, it stored that in the browser. So location dot address, location dot lat, location dot launch, and that stays in the browser basically until the user clears out their cache or clears the data for this page. So even if I were to close the entire browser, that gets stored there. We've done it, Tony. Took us hour and 45.
A lot less time than the Craigslist one.
Yeah, I think we streamed for like close to 3 hours last time. This was fun. We got a basic app working. Oh yeah, we did say we were gonna do. We did say we were gonna do the map. I kind of want to do the map because I think that would be pretty easy actually.
Yeah, I think the app is really simple.
Comment in the chat. This should be a new tab Chrome extension. That'd be cool. Yeah, you open a new tab, you see the weather. I initially had an idea for like finding like really nice cinemagraphs or really like HD photos, and then depending on what the weather is, you show that that image as a background or something like that. I don't know though. But let's just look at the maps real quick, because that would be really cool to show this thing. Cool. So if we go to embed this, let's generate it. That gives us an embed code. And we basically want to show that right below the card. So we'll do a similar thing, column 8 and offset 2. If we just hard code that, let's see what we get. Oh man. Error compiling template. Avoid placing tags with side effects such as script, as they will not be parsed. Lame. Let's do this. We're going to hack it. We're going to we're going to store this div as a reference. We'll call this map. And then when they load a specific latitude, longitude, we're going to say this.$refs.map. So that gives us access to the actual element. Inner HTML equals that thing, but with our custom latitude and longitude. Are you tracking, Tony?
Can we still do? Okay. Yeah. I was gonna say, can we still do that $sign thing? And you answered it right as I was.
Yeah, so we should be able to. So now, like, depending on what latitude, longitude they put in, we change the embed URL, and it should show that map. Error parsing, unterminated template.
What was that called again? When you do that, the $sign backtick thing.
Template literal.
Template literal.
Yeah.
Yeah, that whole concept blows my mind. Like, because I know I've been wanting to do like maybe we could do this like I guess like next week, like doing like messing around with the Pokédex app. That's been most of my API messing around with, just doing stuff with Postman and stuff, but making calls is a nightmare trying to append stuff.
So
without that.
So you want to make like a custom Pokédex to like search for Pokemon?
Yeah, I mean we could. I mean, if you want to do something like that for next week, I mean we've done it before, but maybe people be interested. I don't know.
Am I doing this wrong? Unterminated template. So I've got my backticks on there. Got my $signs. I may just have to do this the old-fashioned way. It's like concatenate it. And I'm really curious why they did that.
Yeah, like so see, like this right here hurts my soul.
Unterminated string constant. There aren't any. I mean, there's single ticks inside of there, but it's inside double quotes, so that shouldn't care about it. Let's do this. Maybe it doesn't like this in my template, so here's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna put this in our API and call it like get embed URL or something like that, or get embed script. We'll say get embed script and pass in the lat and the longe, and then in the API we'll have a function called get embed script, takes the latitude and longitude, and then just returns that. Yeah, for whatever reason, the Vue.js template didn't like that I was doing that inside of there. Really don't know why. I have to do API.getEmbedScript. So export getEmbedScript. In here, we'll say API.getEmbedScript. All right. Moment of truth. And it's not showing up. Let's see what's happening.
Boo.
So we got our body, got our main, home. There's that div.
We need to get a soundboard for these.
I made a soundboard. I'm not using it today. So yeah, Magneto is saying the script generates a simple iframe with a latitude longitude URL. We could use the iframe directly. That might work because then we could just bind the URL. Yes, because this does not seem to be loading. Like if we look at the network request, does a request go out for that script? No. Yeah, so it doesn't like that we're doing that. Let's try that. So if we just look at that, where'd it go? Maps. If we just look at this JavaScript file directly, let's see what it actually does. It does a document.write of this iframe. So let's just put that iframe in there. Right there. Let's just see if so this is still hard coded, but let's see if it shows up. And we don't want to do that anymore. Hey, something's happening. Waiting for DarkSky. Oh, there we go. Cool. That's kind of working. So now let's put this. Let's take a quick break, and then we'll be done. And we got a pretty decent weather app with emojis and all. You're not saying anything, Tony. What's going through your head?
Not much. I'm just trying to think about like something you want to do next week because I don't know. Would you want to make like a simple game or something?
That would be fun. Yeah. Something like with phaser or like
we
something
could
like
do.
that.
Yeah, there's something called Pixie.js you should check out.
Okay.
Or you could use a phaser or something.
Oh, but we're not storing the latitude longitude. Never mind. Okay, here's what we do. We need to set the embed URL. So initially, our embed URL is the empty string. And then when this function runs with the latitude and longitude, this dot embed URL will be this thing. This might complain about the actually ideally we can just use our existing function. So like API.getEmbedScript, we'll call it getEmbedURL, pass in the lat and the long, and then in our API We'll call this get embed URL, and we'll return that thing with the latitude and the longitude. Easy as that, right? I think technically it's working. Yeah. 504 gateway timeout. This is lame. It could be because it's like generating this auth URL. Yeah, the auth URL changes every time. Lame. Let's try again. Oh, there it is. So that seems to work. But what if we say Tokyo search? It's wait. So if you notice in the bottom left, it's waiting for DarkSky. So I think it just takes a second before it generates the map.
Where's our cat GIF when we need it?
Yeah. I don't like that. Oh, there it is, finally.
What? Hold on. What's with the sharks and stuff?
Well, that's the ocean, because
What are those?
Japan is in the ocean. Oh. For whatever reason, it wasn't actually centered around Tokyo. Like, here's Tokyo. Oh, well. If I do a hard refresh of the page, oh, it loads pretty instantly. I'm okay with that. What do you think, Tony? Are you excited? Are you proud of your work today?
Yeah, I'm pretty stoked. It looks really clean. It looks not that the Craigslist looked bad, but I kind of like the look of this one better than the Craigslist one.
Cool. Sweet. I will push this code up to GitHub. So if you check out Coding Garden on GitHub, right now I just have the README pushed up, but I'll push up the code. You can take a look at that. And yeah, any last words, Tony? Any questions in the chat before we end the stream?
Thanks for doing this.
Yeah, thanks you.
Hope
Thank you.
somebody learned something.
I think they have, and I think they are. This is
I think
I'll just say real quick, this is a very popular video series on the channel. A lot of noobs appreciate that you ask questions and don't just accept things for what they are.
Yeah, my biggest takeaway from this was the pre-tag. That was really cool.
Okay, awesome. Sweet. Yeah, I guess we'll end it there. Thanks again, Tony. Thanks everyone for watching. Have a wonderful afternoon, morning, night, evening, wherever you are in the world, and we will see you next time. Goodbye. Goodbye.